stop for just a moment and turn your attention inward. Think about the way your life has unfolded so far. The choices you've made, the turns you've taken, the people you allow close, and the dreams you dare to chase, or the ones you quietly abandoned. Do all of these really belong to you? Or is it possible that somewhere hidden deep in the fold of your own mind, there are unseen hands tugging at the strings, guiding your every move, without you ever realizing it? I'm not talking about the obvious external influences. Family, society, culture, religion. Those are visible enough. And most of us can point them out without much difficulty. What I mean is something far more intimate. Something that comes from within. It is silent, patient, and yet astonishingly powerful. Something that lives inside your own psyche, shaping the way you see yourself and the world around you. Carl Jung believed that what most of us consider the self, the conscious personality we identify with each day, is in large part an illusion, a carefully crafted facade. The true drivers of human life are not the rational thoughts we believe ourselves to be in control of, but hidden and unconscious forces that operate like invisible programs, always running in the background. And here is the unsettling truth. These programs were not designed to set you free. They were designed to keep you safe. But safe, in the psychological sense, often means trapped, confined to patterns of thought, feeling, and behavior so deeply ingrained that you don't even notice them. Imagine for a moment that inside you are not one unified personality, but many small psychological entities, like hidden actors on a stage. They observe the world, decide how you should act, and when the moment comes, they step forward and take control without asking for your consent. Jung called these entities autonomous complexes. They don't wait for your permission. They don't ask if you want to react with fear or anger or silence. They simply act. And the moment you begin trying to break free, they push back harder, determined to keep you in the same cycle. Think about how many times you said something like, "I don't know why I did that," or "That didn't even feel like me in that moment." Think of the opportunities you've let pass you by, the important conversations you've avoided, the emotional outbursts that embarrass you after the fact. Were those simply random mistakes? Or were they signs that some other part of you, hidden beneath the surface, had taken over? Jung's insight was chilling. These unconscious forces don't operate in isolation. They feed on each other, reinforce one another, and together form a cycle so strong it can dominate an entire life. He called this condition psychological possession, a state where you believe you are steering the ship, when in reality you are only a passenger, carried along by ancient fears that control every step. And these fears are not the obvious kind, not the kind you feel in the pit of your stomach when you're watching a horror film, or when you're in real physical danger. No, these fears are more insidious. They are woven so deeply into your identity that you hardly recognize them as fears at all. They show up not as screaming terror, but as hesitation, as prudence, as avoidance, as endlessly repeated habits that keep you in the same small circle of existence. Jung identified 3 central fears that secretly rule our lives. To see them clearly is like finding the key to a locked cell you didn't even realize you were in. But here's the catch. Once you truly see what is shaping your behavior, you cannot unsee it. There is no going back to the comfortable ignorance you've been living in. It's like unlocking a dark room that's been sealed all your life. You may not like what's inside, but you will no longer be able to deny it. So the question becomes, are you willing to face yourself? To discover who or what is really in control of your life? Because once you hear what Jung revealed, the responsibility will be yours alone. Do you keep allowing these forces to guide you, or do you finally take control of your own destiny? To begin, we must first understand the nature of these autonomous complexes. The phrase sounds technical, but what it describes is something you've already felt countless times. Complexes are like small personalities within you. They are not just abstract metaphors. They are living psychological systems, each one made of memories, emotions, images, and impulses. At the center of every complex is a powerful emotional charge. And when that charge is triggered, it doesn't merely influence you, it takes command. Jung observed that complexes often form from significant experiences, traumas, humiliations, painful rejections, or unfulfilled desires. Once created, they take on a kind of independent life. Picture them as little islands floating in the ocean of your mind, each one with its own rules, its own language, its own way of seeing the world. Most of the time, your conscious self, the you that you recognize, remains in charge. But when a complex is triggered, that conscious self is pushed aside, replaced by a different self entirely. And the eerie part? You don't even realize it's happening. A casual comment from someone may awaken a complex of rejection, and suddenly you feel attacked, defensive, or withdrawn. A situation that reminds you of past failure may trigger the complex of not being good enough, and you quietly step back from the opportunity in front of you. It's as if there are invisible buttons scattered all throughout your life, and anyone who presses them, intentionally or not, can manipulate your reactions. Now, Jung was clear. Complexes are not necessarily enemies. They are parts of your history, fragments of your psyche frozen in time, still reacting as though the original event were happening right now. The problem is not that they exist, but that you are unconscious of them. Without awareness, you have no choice. You think you are acting, when in reality, you are merely reacting according to an old script written by events you may not even remember. Think about how many times you promise yourself, next time, I'll act differently. And then, when the situation repeated itself, you fell into the exact same pattern. That wasn't because you lacked willpower. It was because a complex had taken over. And that is why Jung described them as autonomous entities. They don't care about your goals. They don't care about the consequences. They simply want to express themselves. Here lies the challenge, but also the hope. Complexes can be recognized. They can be integrated into consciousness. But this demands an unusual kind of courage. The courage to ask, in moments of loss of control, who was in charge of me just now? If you can face that question honestly, you begin to see the outline of the hidden forces that have been running your life. But this is only the beginning. Because behind these complexes, Jung identified a deeper fear. One that almost no one recognizes for what it is. It doesn't look like fear at all. In fact, it disguises itself as wisdom, as prudence, as common sense. It whispers to you, now isn't the right time, better not take the risk, better to wait just a little longer. But beneath the disguise lies a profound fear, the fear of becoming who you really are. Jung called this process individuation, the path of discovering and living according to your true essence, your authentic self. And he insisted that very few people ever had the courage to follow this path all the way. From the moment you were born, you were conditioned to fit in. Parents, teachers, and peers taught you to be good, polite, predictable, acceptable. Don't draw too much attention. Don't show too much vulnerability. Don't deviate too far from the norm. All of this conditioning built an identity that was safe, but not safe for you. Safe for the system. Safe for others. So what happens when you begin to break free? When you start taking steps toward individuation. Perhaps you decide to change your career, to end a toxic relationship, or set boundaries by saying no where you once said yes. Suddenly, something inside you panics. It's as though your psyche screams, stop, go back. This is dangerous. And this is a trap. Because the so-called safe territory is nothing more than the endless repetition of old patterns, even if those patterns are slowly killing you inside. Jung observed that most people would rather live in the comfort of collective conformity than face the existential loneliness of being truly unique. Because to take control of your life means to accept full responsibility for it. No more blaming others. No more blaming luck or fate or circumstances. Just you, standing before yourself, responsible for your entire existence. And for many, that level of freedom feels unbearable. Think about how much easier it is to follow a ready-made script than to write your own. It's easier to choose a stable, socially approved career than to risk chasing something you love. It's easier to maintain shallow friendships than to risk deep ones that could end in heartbreak. It's easier to belong to a group, however ill-fitting, than to stand alone and risk rejection by everyone. This is a resistance to individuation, and its cost is devastating. Every time you choose safety over authenticity, a little more of your true self dies. And here's where Jung saw the cruel irony. This resistance doesn't work alone. It is always paired with another powerful force, one that shapes not just how you behave, but who you believe you are, a mask you wear every single day. So convincingly that after years, you forget there's a face beneath it. Jung called this mask the persona. And to understand a persona is to take another step into the darkness of the human psyche, a step we will take next. To survive in a world, we all learn, almost from the moment we can walk and speak, that we need masks. These masks are not necessarily lies. They are adaptations, versions of ourselves carefully shaped to meet expectations. Jung called them the persona. Think about it. There's a version of you that shows up at work, the one that knows when to smile, when to stay quiet, and how to appear competent even when you're struggling. There's the version of you that appears in front of your family, the one that carries the weight of being a dutiful son or daughter, brother or sister. There's the version of you with friends, laughing a little louder, hiding your private worries, playing the role that keeps you included. And then there's even the version you show yourself in the mirror, the image you've practiced and polished until you can almost believe it's real. The persona is, in many ways, necessary. Without it, moving through the complexities of human life would be nearly impossible. It protects us from judgment. It allows us to function in society, to cooperate, to be accepted. But here's a hidden cost. Over time, the mask fuses to the skin. You forget where performance ends and where your real self begins. The tool you created to survive becomes a prison. Imagine living so long inside a role that you no longer remember who you are outside of it. Imagine being so committed to the act that when the real you tries to surface, angry, vulnerable, creative, uncertain, you immediately push it back down, terrified that others might see it. This is the danger of the persona. When you identify so completely with the mask that you mistake it for your face. And this isn't a small problem. It is suffocating, because a persona doesn't just hide you from others. It hides you from yourself. The fear of being rejected, criticized, or abandoned makes you cling to the mask even when it chokes the life out of you. You begin avoiding situations where the truth of who you are might slip through. You choose safe words, safe opinions, safe behaviors. And deep inside, you feel the quiet betrayal. You know you're selling yourself out. There are moments, small ones, when the shadow, that collection of everything you rejected and denied about yourself, presses against the surface, demanding to be seen. Maybe it happens when you're alone, when your emotions rise without warning. Maybe it happens in anger or in sudden tears, or in a dream that leaves you unsettled. In those moments, a part of you longs to be acknowledged. But a persona is strong, trained over years, and it quickly silences the truth, shoving it back into the dark. Why? Because showing who you really are is risky. It means vulnerability. It means allowing others to see your contradictions, your fears, your humanity. And if your entire sense of worth has been built on external acceptance, that risk feels unbearable. Jung warned that the great danger of the persona is exactly this. When you become so identified with the role you play, you lose all sense of what is real. You live not as yourself, but as the image you created for others. It can be a beautiful image, a convincing one, but at its core it is a lie. And like all lies, it requires constant maintenance. You bend your life to keep it believable. You sacrifice authenticity to keep the mask intact. Picture it like this. You are living inside a luxurious cell. The walls are beautiful. The floor is clean. There are comfortable cushions, and everything looks in order. From the outside, no one would know you're locked in. But you are. You cannot leave. Because a persona has glued itself to you, and without it, you fear you would lose everything: respect, belonging, love. This is the prison of the persona. And it is not separate from the other forces we've already explored. In fact, it works alongside them. The persona and the resistance to individuation feed each other. The persona keeps you performing a role, while resistance whispers that it's too dangerous to stop playing. Meanwhile, the autonomous complexes wait in the shadows, ready to hijack you the moment something threatens the act. Together, they create a cycle, a theater in which you are both the actor and the prisoner, performing a role so convincingly that even you believe it. But behind the curtain, the truth remains unspoken. You are not free. This brings us to Jung's most haunting observation, something he calls psychological possession. Because these forces do not remain separate. They intertwine. They form alliances. They reinforce one another until they become a system, a machine designed to keep you exactly where you are. Here's how it works. A complex is triggered by some emotional cue, a criticism, a painful memory, a sudden failure. The complex seizes control and dictates your reaction, pulling you into a familiar script. Before you even realize it, the persona steps in to tidy things up to make sure your reaction doesn't reveal too much. It smooths over the cracks, reshapes your tone, adjusts your words so you appear normal in front of others. And if you try to resist, if you attempt to act differently, resistance to individuation rises like a silent guard at the gate. It whispers, "Don't do that. It's dangerous. You'll regret it. Stay where you are." This cycle locks you into a state of possession, not in the supernatural sense, not demons or ghosts, but in the psychological sense. Your consciousness is taken over by forces you do not control. In those moments, you are not living. You are being lived. Think about it carefully. The decisions you make, the relationships you hold on to, the opportunities you reject. How many of them are truly yours? And how many are filtered through the combined machinery of complexes, persona, and resistance? The cruelest part is that from the outside, everything looks perfectly fine. You go to work. You care for your family. You spend time with friends. Life seems normal. But inside, the same patterns repeat again and again, like a scratched record that never moves forward. And every time you try to change, the entire system rises up to sabotage you, pulling you back into cage. This is why so many abandon the path of self-discovery. It isn't just uncomfortable. It is actively opposed from within. Jung believed that when these three forces align, they become guardians of an internal gate. Guardians who do not want you to reach the other side, where your true self waits. They don't just block your path. They create illusions convincing you that there is no path at all. They make you believe you are free when, in truth, you are pacing in a small circle, mistaking it for the whole world. And yet, there is hope. Because once you begin to see this mechanism for what it is, everything changes. The cycle relies on invisibility. It depends on you not noticing. The moment you become an observer of your own psyche, when you can say, that wasn't me, that was a complex, or that was my persona speaking, not my truth, the machinery begins to lose its grip. This is the turning point Jung described. The moment you stop being a blind passenger and start being the observer. And from there, you can begin the slow work of breaking the cycle from the inside out. But here we must pause, because this is no simple task. Seeing the mechanism is only the beginning. Weakening it requires practice, courage, and a willingness to walk into the darkest corners of your own psyche without flinching. So how do you do it? How do you begin dismantling a system that has ruled your life for so long? How do you loosen the grip of complexes, unmask persona, and face the terror of individuation? The answer, Jung insisted, is not to destroy these forces. That would be impossible and in many ways undesirable. They are part of you. They are woven into your history, your energy, your very being. The goal is not elimination, but integration. To bring into the light what has always lived in shadow, and to reclaim the power you unknowingly gave away. And that journey begins with a single step, radical awareness. This is where we will go next, into practices, the challenges, and the breakthroughs of breaking free. Awareness is the beginning. It is the spark that illuminates the hidden machinery of the psyche. But what follows awareness is often far more difficult, because once you see the truth, you cannot unsee it. You can no longer pretend the mask is real, or that the cycles are accidents. You know, and knowing demands responsibility. The first step is radical observation. Jung insisted that you must become a witness to yourself. This means paying attention not only to what you do, but to the invisible impulses that drive you. When anger arises, you don't just lash out, you pause and ask, who is speaking to me right now? When fear paralyzes you, you ask, is this truly me, or is this the voice of a complex repeating its old script? This observation must be ruthless, but also compassionate, because what you discover will not always be flattering. You will see how much of your life has been hijacked by forces you barely understood. You will notice the lies you've told yourself, the roles you played, the betrayals you committed against your own authenticity. It can be painful, but Jung warned, if you refuse to see, you remain possessed. If you dare to see, You begin to reclaim freedom. The second step is confrontation. Awareness alone is not enough. You must face what you've hidden. This is where the shadow comes into play. The aspect of yourself you buried because they didn't fit the image you wanted to show the world. Your anger, your envy, your lust, your weakness, your tenderness, your wounds. Most people recoil from the shadow. They see it as dangerous, shameful, ugly. But Jung saw it differently. He understood that the shadow is not your enemy. It is your unlived life. Everything you suppress there carries energy, vitality, power. By denying it, you don't destroy it. You simply exile it where it festers and grows destructive. Confronting the shadow means shining a light on what you denied and saying, yes, this too is me. This is terrifying because it feels like breaking apart the image you've worked so hard to maintain. But here's the paradox. The moment you accept the shadow, the mask begins to loosen. The persona no longer has to protect you from yourself. You realize you are larger, more complex, more human than the simple role you've been playing. The third step is expression. It is not enough to simply acknowledge the shadow. You must find ways to live it, consciously, responsibly, creatively. This does not mean unleashing your rage or cruelty onto the world without restraint. It means finding channels where the shadow can breathe without destroying you or others. Art, writing, honest conversation, even dreams. These are all places where the shadow can speak. For some, therapy becomes a space where this expression is safest. For others, solitude and creativity provide the outlet. What matters is that the exiled parts of you are no longer silenced. They find voice. They return to the circle of your being. The fourth step is responsibility. Jung warned that integration is not indulgence. To integrate your shadow, you must take ownership of its power. If you discover rage within you, you don't excuse destructive behavior by saying, "This is just my shadow." No, you acknowledge the energy and choose consciously how to use it. Perhaps that rage fuels your fight for justice. Perhaps it gives you strength to set boundaries. Responsibility means you stop being ruled by unconscious forces and start making deliberate choices. This is the heart of individuation. The process of becoming who you truly are. It does not mean becoming perfect. It does not mean eliminating contradiction. It means holding the opposites within yourself, light and dark, strength and vulnerability, order and chaos, and allowing them to coexist without tearing you apart. But let's be honest, this path is not easy. It is not a weekend project. It is a lifelong unfolding. Along the way, resistance will return. Complexes will still be triggered. The persona will still tempt you with its safety. Even possession will threaten to overtake you in moments of weakness. But the difference is this. Now you see it. Now you know. And once you know, you are no longer a helpless prisoner. Each time you observe without judgment, you weaken the complex. Each time you allow the shadow to breathe, the persona loosens. Each time you take responsibility, you reclaim a piece of your power. Step by step, the machinery that once ruled you begins to crumble. And then something extraordinary happens. Beneath the roles, beneath the fears, beneath the fragments of self you've been juggling, you begin to sense a deeper center. Jung called this the self, not the ego, not the mask, but the wholeness that has been guiding you all along. The self is not a role, not a performance. It is a core of your being, vast, mysterious, timeless. Contact with the self feels different from anything else. It brings a sense of alignment, as if the scattered parts of you are finally drawing toward a single center. It feels like clarity, like stillness in the middle of a storm. It is not the absence of struggle, but the presence of meaning. You realize that every battle you face with complexes, resistance, and persona was not meant to destroy you. It was meant to lead you here, to the center, to this wholeness. And this, Jung believed, is the true purpose of life. Not comfort, not success, not external approval, but individuation. The slow, courageous work of becoming who you really are. Most people will never walk this path. They will live and die inside their masks, convinced that the prison is freedom. They will be ruled by complexes, tricked by resistance, possessed by forces they never question. They will laugh, work, love, and suffer, always unaware of the deeper journey they could have taken. But a few will awaken. A few will see the machinery and dare to dismantle it. A few will step to the fear and confront the shadow. A few will choose authenticity over acceptance, meaning over comfort, freedom over illusion. And those few will discover a truth more powerful than any mask, any role, any prison. That the most dangerous forces within us are not to destroy us, but to challenge us, to test us, to break us open so that the real self, long hidden, can finally emerge. The choice is yours. Remain in the safety of the mask, or walk into the storm of individuation. Pretend to live, or truly live. Serve the machinery of the psyche, or reclaim the throne of your own soul. Jung left us no easy answers, no shortcuts. Only this: to become conscious is the greatest burden and the greatest gift. So ask yourself here and now, are you willing to carry it?